Next, a follow-up to another CBC News investigation. You may remember 6 months ago, one of our investigative teams looked into abuse in kids' sport, kids and youth amateur sport, not elite athletics. And that investigation found more than 200 coaches had been convicted of sexual offenses against minors over the course of the past 2 decades. There was a series of responses and promises from all levels of government, and we want to update that situation for you this morning. Jamie Strachan was one of the lead investigators with me this morning, and thanks for coming in. I just gave some of those big numbers there, Jamie, and remembering people, 200 plus coaches convicted and all of the things. But just remind us of what you think were the main takeaways from your investigation originally.
I think the main takeaway for me as a parent that, finally this was quantified as an issue in youth sport. It was one of those things that, we had seen the big cases, the Graham James. You saw the headline every so often in, your local paper, wherever you live in this country, coach charged. But we really dug in and finally, quantified it as an issue. And I think what really resonated for me was this wasn't, a hockey problem, a basketball problem, a baseball problem. It was across dozens of sports. It really touched all, levels of youth sports, from, very non-competitive house league to, more competitive teams. But it was an issue, something that, every sport in every jurisdiction in this country was faced with.
And it prompted cries of dismay, as I mentioned, from all levels of government. Looking at what was promised and the changes that were pledged to come, what has happened?
Well, obviously the number was shocking to people. People never really knew the size of this issue. A number of promises were made, but a lot of those promises, Heather, were focused at the national level. There's, the formation of a code of conduct, third-party resolution. The big thing was this 1-800 number that was introduced. It was supposed to be a resource for children, their parents, people concerned in the community to, register suspicions of sexual abuse, seek advice. The problem with this number is it's been given very little promotion, even on the NSO sites. These are the national sport organizations, the one actually controlled by the federal government. Only about half of them even had a mention of the number. Mostly it was buried, beneath like multiple links. And as a parent, the big issue, for me, being out, on baseball diamonds, in hockey arenas, talking to many people across the community. We talked to dozens of organizations across the country, down at the grassroots level. None of the information from up here is getting down to the grassroots level. And that's where we found our investigation, where the issue was, Heather. A number of experts during our investigation really kind of aided us in guiding us through what can be a very complicated sports system. One of them was Sandra Kirby. She's a former Olympian, longtime professor at the University of Winnipeg. Here's what she had to say about where this is 6 months later.
All of this information out there, nobody in sport could say that they don't understand this is an issue. And yet sport organizations themselves seem moribund to do anything, partly out of fear and partly out of they just simply hope it's going to go away or it's going to be in somebody else's sport and not theirs. And instead they should be, taking the bull by the horns. They should be developing their policies, bringing in safe sport people to help train them up, getting an independent safeguarding mechanism in place so when complaints do come forward, they're ready, and then be ahead of the game.
And Heather, just 2 things just to finish up. Obviously, it's been 6 months since the investigation. We've seen 22 more coaches charged across the country. So this is an issue that continues to be out there.
22 more coaches in the last 6 months?
In the last 6 months, Heather. So this is a problem that continues to be out there. And we've seen sport be able to grapple with big issues before, from the top down. We've seen it with, the respect in sport, governing how parents act in the arena on the ball diamond. All parents had to take that course before their kids could play. We've seen in Ontario this year with Rowan's Law and concussions, parents having to sign waivers before their kids are allowed to play. So we've seen sport be able to take issues from the top down and get them down to the grassroots. On the issue of sexual abuse in sport, it's been slow. We're not quite there yet.
And yet the will is there. That was clear when your investigation first happened. What is it about this particular issue that is so difficult in order to enact change?
Well, I think, the very kind of boring answer is, jurisdictional issues, the ability of the federal government to get the money and the programs down, through the provinces, down into the clubs. But really, I think it's an issue of money, and it's an issue of will. If they wanted to get this number out there and promote it in a very robust fashion, they could do so. If they wanted to make, certain things mandatory for parents and coaches, before they could coach, beyond what we have now, which is our police background checks and things like that. If they wanted to do more, we could do more on this issue. And I think, it's slowly starting to resonate with people that it's something that we need to grapple with. And the focus, is so much on the field of play for parents. What kind of equipment do we have? Who's on the team? Who are we playing? How good are we? And, this is an important issue, like concussions, like bullying. It's something that needs to be, contemplated by youth sports and then grappled with in a meaningful way.
Well, as you revisit your investigation, renewed pressure on those who can bring about that kind of change. Jamie Strachan, thanks as always for coming in this morning here with me. But if you want to read more about what Jamie's been looking into and the latest developments, the update to his original investigation, CBC Sports has the page up online. This is CBC News Network.